Hey guys, this is Colby. Today I'm going to show you how to make the rest of the belt attachments, except for the cylinder on the back. We're just going to make these two little boxes here. So let's get started. Starting off, I'm going to move this front plane here. I'm going to drag it to the side. So G, X, move it to the left. We're going to switch pretty much over to the side of the reference. So after this, you will just press G, then Y, move it ahead of the belts. So that way you can see the belts pretty much behind the piece. So if you go to back view, press Y on this little button here, click on the positive Y, it'll say back orthographic, and here you'll see pretty much the back of the belts. And since this is going to be what's going to have all the information we need in this piece here. So starting off, we're going to create this middle piece here on the back of the belts, side of the belts I mean. So you can select the belt itself, press Shift S, cursor to selected, or you can just shift and right click on this side of the base or the belt itself. So click right there, Shift A, mesh, let's create a cube, scale down, and go to side view, and press S, and then just kind of scale it up a bit. We're trying to match the overall shape and size of this cube here. Press S to scale it up with your mouse. You can make it skinnier on the Y-axis, so SY, move it up, and SZ. So S and Y will make it wider on the Y-axis, X, S, and then X will make it skinnier or larger on the X-axis, depending on how you drag your arrow. And then S, then Z will make it taller. So here's some things to know when you're scaling this piece. Just keep that in mind. So I'll make this piece a bit skinnier. So press S and then X, scale it a bit sideways, move it pretty much a little bit to the right. So reach G and X and move it down a bit. So there we go. Now what I'm going to do is go into edit mode on this piece and press 2 on the keyboard. And we're going to go into edge mode, press 2 up here, and grab this edge, press G and Z, move it down a bit. If you go to side view, you can see that the piece here has a tiny bit of a curve on the top, or an angle, kind of like this piece as well. So there we go, we have it matched. And we can move the bottom face here, move it up a bit, just match the reference a little bit better. And so now we're going to extrude two side faces from each side of the cube. So one here and one on this side as well. So what I'm going to do is select this face here, press 3 on the keyboard, select that face, select this one as well, press I to inset. I'll show you what I'm pressing. So press I and drag your mouse inward a bit, scale down, not too much, just a little bit. So now what we're going to do is extrude a face from each of these faces that we just created. Just press E. And after you press E, left click twice to finalize the creation, extrude the face, and then press S, then Y, and scale these out a bit from each other. Just like that. Match to your reference a little bit better. And there we go. Now we need to create a little section down the middle. It's like a little bit of a line. So look on the piece here. It's a tiny line. It's hard to see. Basically, just go into edit mode on your piece. Press Ctrl R right down the middle to create a horizontal line. Before you finalize it though, you can scroll up once with your mouse. After that, left click twice, press S then Z, and make it a bit shorter. So now what we're going to do is go into face mode here, hold down Shift and Alt, and select one of these faces on this little mid section here to select a ring kind of around the piece, like an edge loop. Just like that. You should have it all highlighted all around, entire piece. So now what you want to do is press E, S, and scale down with your mouse, just a tiny bit, to add a little bit of extra detail. So now that little detail is done. So one more step for this piece here is we're going to create another cube, and we're going to pretty much move it right about here. So I'm going to select this face, press Shift S, cursor to selected, Shift A, create a cube, scale down, and keep in mind I'm doing all this in edit mode on this piece, or the attachment, the middle attachment, so that way it's just kind of all this together. But basically just move this cube into position right here, scale down, make it skinnier on the x-axis, so you can grab this face here and drag it inward a bit. And basically, we want to create a trapezoid. Grab these two edges, make it a bit wider from each other, so S and Y, scale them apart from each other. And so now you can grab these two edges here in the fronts, press S and then Y, and scale them inward, closer together. So if you go to side view, you can see it's a bit tall, so I need to make some adjustments to this little piece. Just make it a bit shorter. Select the whole piece. You can press L on the whole little cube that you just created. Now select all that are linked together. Press S and then Z and make it a bit skinnier, or shorter, I mean. You can also make it a bit skinnier as well on the y-axis, just like that. If you want to, you can now go back into object mode, shade smooth, and turn on auto smooth if you want to. I wouldn't say it's essential since this piece is pretty much just like blocky, or it's very blocky, so you don't really need to shade, so don't worry too much about that. So for this next piece here, we're going to pretty much do the same process for this. So you can just go and press Shift right click right about here, Shift A, create a mesh. Let's create a cube, scale down quite a bit. So S, then drag your mouse inward. You can move to the side, a tad bits. If you go to side view, just kind of move into position. I wouldn't rotate it just yet. So if you like say rotate like this, that'll make extruding it and pretty much editing faces a bit difficult. So just keep it kind of like as it is now, straight outs, and just try to do your best to match it. You can rotate it if you want to. Just keep in mind it'll make things a little bit more difficult. Basically, I'm just going to move this piece outward a bit. And make some adjustments, make it a bit wider. This is the largest piece on the entire belt, aside from the cylinder. So now, go into edit mode on the piece. Grab this edge here. Do the same we did for this piece, so make it a little bit of an angle, just like that. If you look closely on the piece, on the reference, you can see that it has a little tiny line right here. That means that we just add an edge loop down the middle and scale this bottom section down. I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to create two edge loops in edge mode on the piece. So you can press Ctrl R, scroll up with your mouse to create two new edge loops, left click, and just kind of move your mouse downward a bit to slide them down. And now press S. Once you finalize it, press S and then Z and make them a bit closer to each other. You can move it up a bit. After that, we're going to basically grab this set of edges here. With this set of faces, so go into face mode, hold down Shift and Alt and select the set of faces. Press S a tad bit, so S, drag your mouse inward just a tiny bit. So it's just a small little detail, but there we go. Finally, we have one more little section of the piece to cover. So we have this little piece and actually two more sections. So I'm gonna hide all these pieces just to make it easier to see. But now we need to kind of add an extra cube for this face here, this little square, and there's little two holes right here. They're kind of hard to see. So you go into edit mode on the piece. I'm gonna select this face, press Shift S, and let's create a new cube. Shift A, create a new cube, scale it down. This is going to be a very skinny piece and very flat. So if you move outward a bit, just move it pretty much right in front of this face. Grab this face and make it pretty much move it all the way inward. So press G and then X, just like that. And grab these two faces on the y-axis, the sides here. Press S then Y, scale them apart from each other. And I'm gonna move this whole piece down. So press L on this cube that you just created. press G and then Y, and just move it down a bit. Pretty much like on the reference. So now we're going to select the whole piece that we just created, the little cube. So press L on the cube, and then press Shift D to duplicates, and Z, move it upward with your mouse. And so now you'll grab this top face here in face mode and just move it down a bit, right about here. And you can make this little section down. You can select both these faces on the inside and move them down a tad bits. There we go. Now I'm going to show you how to create these 4 little points that go on top of this little front face here. So let's get started with this little piece. So we're going to go into edit mode on this piece and press shift right click on this corner here. Any of the 4 corners, it's up to you. Press shift A, create a cube. Let's scale it down. Move it a little bit on the y-axis. Press G and then X, move it outward a bit. And let's just move this piece down. Press S then Z, make it a bit taller. You can press S then Y to also make it a bit skinnier as well. And grab this face, move it inside a bit. And lastly, grab this, press 2 on the keyboard or press this little button here. And we're going to select this edge. Press Ctrl B to bevel the back side of this piece. Now we're going to duplicate this piece pretty much 3 more times. So press L on the piece, press Shift D to duplicate, then Y. Move it over on the y-axis to the other side. And we're going to now select both of these pieces. Press Shift D to duplicate again, and Z to move it upward bits. So now we need to basically rotate this 2 pieces on the x-axis 180 degrees. Basically just flip them. So press RX 180. And just move it upward a bit, and there we go. So one last section to this piece is the 2 little holes that go right here on the bottom right corner of the box. So to do that, I'm basically just going to go into object mode on the piece and press shift right click right about here. Let's create a cube and scale it down and make it wider on the y-axis and just move it out a bit. And move them into position on the reference. And make sure that this piece is clipping through the box that we have right here. So it should actually be clipping through just a tiny bit, so that way we can cut a hole in it. But basically now go into edit mode on the piece. Grab these 4 corners in edge mode and press Ctrl B to bevel. So now we can go back to object mode, duplicate this piece, move down a tad bits. So now we're going to basically add a Boolean modifier to the box that we just made. So add Boolean modifier and set the object as the little squares or cubes that we just created. And so now if you press H on this piece, press hide, you'll see that we now created 2 little holes on the bottom right of the box. It's a pretty quick and easy way to add tiny little details is to use the Boolean modifier. And also in this case, for some reason, the 4 little corners that I just created are like not really showing up. So to fix that, I just press fast. That's just more on my side. It might be different for you. But anyway, after that, you can just apply your modifier. Now I'm going to go into object mode on the whole piece, shade smooth. So right click, shade smooth. You see some shading problems. To fix that, you can press this button here and turn on auto smooth under normals. It's a pretty easy way to fix some shading problems. Now we're basically done with this box here. So I'm gonna unhide everything, press Alt H to unhide everything. I'm going to take these little cubes, and I'm just move this box over onto position on the belts. And now we can rotate the whole piece. Press RZ, move it pretty much to the side and match to the reference. You can make it a bit shorter if you need to, scale down a tad bits. S and Z, make it a bit shorter, S and Y. In this case, press S and Y twice, so SYY. That'll actually scale on the proper axis. Rotate it and match to the belts. You can also do the same with grabbing the tool. Just press G and Y twice, so that way you can move it on the Y axis of the object with its rotation in mind. So if you rotate it this way, so RZ, rotate it, press G and Y twice, it'll move it pretty much wherever it's pointing. You can do the same for any of the other axes, so press G and X twice to move it forward and backward, press G and Z to move it upward, and hopefully that makes sense. Also, one thing to note, the reason why I press G and Y twice is because if I do it only once, press G and then Y, it'll actually move pretty much just on the world axis, but not the object axis. So final step, we're going to pretty much mirror these objects across the belts. So select this object, press mirror, add mirror modifier, and set the mirror object as the belts. Do the same for this piece here. Add mirror modifier, and set the mirror object as the belt. So that way it mirrors across. Alright guys, that's the end of this video. If you have any questions, just leave a comment down below. I'll do my best to answer them. Next time, we'll be making the cylinder on the back of the belts. So just stay tuned. But I hope y'all guys found this video useful, and see you guys next time.